Someone asks what you charge, and you immediately lower the price. Not because you think the price is wrong, but because saying it out loud makes you afraid they will realize you are not as good as they thought. You call it being competitive, but there is a more uncomfortable possibility. You are lowering the price because being judged feels more threatening than being underpaid. And the strange part is that the number itself isn't what scares you. It is what saying that number seems to mean about you. This is not a quiet, isolated internal struggle. This invisible panic dictates exactly how you behave around authority figures, how you negotiate, and how you allow other people to treat you in professional relationships. You have spent years acquiring your specific skills. You put in the late nights of study, the relentless hours of trial and error, and the heavy lifting of real-world practice. You know far more about your field than the average person you are dealing with. Yet, when you look at your competitors, you see a social dynamic that makes your stomach turn. You see people with a tiny fraction of your experience, people who barely scratch the surface of the subject, confidently selling their services for astronomical fees. They do not hesitate in meetings. They do not apologize for their rates. They simply look the client in the eye, state a price that seems outrageous to you, and somehow, clients agree to it. You watch these interactions play out, and a burning question forms in your mind. How are they getting away with this? One reason this happens is surprisingly simple. The more you know, the more aware you become of what you do not know. And that awareness can make your own expertise feel smaller than it actually is. You measure your own worth against the absolute top percentile of your industry, the legendary figures and the masters. And compared to them, you feel like an absolute beginner. But you are applying the wrong measuring stick to the human interaction in front of you. When you sit down to talk to a typical client, you are not debating a university professor. You are talking to someone who simply does not have your knowledge or experience, and they are looking to you for clarity. What feels obvious to you may be exactly what the other person has been struggling to understand for months. To them, you are the lifeline. And once you start doubting your value, you often compensate for it with overwork. You do not just do the job. You try to make yourself impossible to criticize. You check everything twice. You rewrite a 3-line email 5 times. You add extra work nobody asked for, because exhaustion can feel easier to tolerate than the possibility of being judged. You think that if you work 3 times harder than everyone else and charge completely average rates, nobody will ever have the right to look at you and question your competence. This is a profound misunderstanding of how human trust is actually built. In many professional interactions, admitting that you need to check something can actually make you sound more credible than pretending you know everything. When a client asks a highly obscure question and you look them right in the eye and say, "That is a highly specific issue and I will need to look into it to give you the exact right answer," you do not look like a fraud. You look like a grounded professional who values truth over appearing smart. Used carefully, that kind of honesty can signal competence rather than weakness. Look at a specific scenario that exposes this. A client brings you a massive, chaotic situation. They are heavily stressed, they are losing sleep, and they are completely overwhelmed by a problem they cannot solve. You look at the situation. You recognize the underlying pattern immediately, and you solve the entire issue in a few effortless moments. Instead of feeling a massive wave of pride, a heavy, sinking feeling of guilt washes over you. You look at the client and think, how can I possibly look this person in the face and ask for hundreds of dollars? It only took me a fraction of the time to do the actual work. This is the exact moment you substitute real value with sheer physical effort in your social exchanges. You have deeply internalized the myth that money is exclusively a reward for suffering. If you did not sweat, if you did not stay up all night agonizing over the screen, you feel a deep social shame in asking for payment. What you completely fail to communicate to yourself, and therefore fail to communicate to the market, is that those fast results were only made possible by 10 years of brutal mistakes, learning, and refinement. Consider what happens if that exact same client takes their problem to a novice charging half your rate. That junior worker will spend 3 weeks stumbling down blind alleys, asking for endless extensions, and keeping the client in a constant state of high anxiety. Because that novice creates a massive, visible paper trail of sheer struggle, you somehow believe their painful process justifies a paycheck. You judge your own clean, immediate resolution as somehow deceptive, simply because it looked too easy. The useful shift is to stop treating effort as the only measure of value. Sometimes expertise is valuable precisely because it makes the work look easy. The client is paying for the problem you can solve and for the time and uncertainty you can save them. If you can solve the problem quickly instead of dragging the project out for 3 weeks, that efficiency is part of what makes your expertise valuable. When you start subtly apologizing in meetings for being fast and efficient, you actively train the people around you to devalue your expertise. Underneath all of this social anxiety and the awkward pricing conversations lies a deeply ingrained behavioral habit from your school days. You are still playing the role of the good student, waiting for a grade. You sit quietly in the professional world, doing your homework perfectly, waiting for the market or some universal authority figure to look at your work and officially grant you permission to be wealthy. The adult professional world does not always give you the kind of clear approval you got at school. You often have to decide what your work is worth before someone else confirms it for you. As long as you enter a negotiation looking into the other person's eyes for validation, you can start communicating a need for approval instead of confidence in your own expertise. You are acting like hired help, hoping for a generous tip. Clients are more likely to trust higher prices when the person asking for them communicates competence, clarity, and confidence rather than apology. Confidence in your expertise is partly reflected in how you behave in the room. It is the ability to state your value and then comfortably sit in the total silence that follows. The moment you name a price that feels high to you, the room may suddenly feel different. The other person might pause. The silence will feel incredibly heavy, and your immediate frantic instinct will be to start talking to fill the void. You will want to justify the number or suggest a discount before they even open their mouth to respond. You must fight that urge with everything you have. Hold the silence. Let them process the number. That silence is uncomfortable, but you do not have to rush in and negotiate against yourself before the other person has even responded. When you refuse to break the tension, you give the other person space to respond without negotiating against yourself. To permanently break this cycle of self-sabotage, you have to change the way you interpret mistakes, uncertainty, and other people's judgment. The first step is giving yourself permission to make mistakes without treating them as disasters. You have to accept that you might make a mistake on a project, someone might notice it, and your professional life can still continue. When you stop treating every mistake as a catastrophe, the fear of being exposed usually becomes easier to manage. The second step is to stop arguing with the feeling and start looking at the evidence. When anxiety is driving the story, arguing with every anxious thought usually isn't enough. Concrete evidence can be more useful. Sit down and write out several specific results that other people achieved with your help. Do not write down what you think about your work. Write down the specific results you can actually point to. Look at the specific human problems you solved and the disasters you prevented for your clients. Whenever the internal voice of panic wakes up and tries to convince you that you are tricking everyone, force your attention back to that list. You may still tell yourself it was luck, timing, or someone else's contribution. One successful result could be luck, but a consistent pattern of results is much harder to explain that way.